Today's episode on Donnie's Kick-Ass Fridays is going to be all about my journey through networking and how I screwed it up so bad. I mean, it was horrible in the beginning, but then I figured it out and then grew some very large businesses by properly understanding what networking is and how to really go and grow other people's businesses so I could grow mine. So this should be a pretty interesting episode. You know, a lot of my career really started out being on stage when people started asking me to talk about networking. I was having a lot of success in the realm, and people wanted to know how I was doing it and how I built such a large business through networking. So I figured I'd talk about my experiences, how I got into networking, how I really completely and totally screwed it up in the beginning, and then, you know, where I learned to turn the page, if you will, in networking. So enjoy the ride. So my first foray into networking, actually getting out and meeting people and shaking hands and trying to build a referral business, was a shit show. I mean, it was bad. I think, you know, some of you, especially anybody who's a seasoned networker, or anybody who may know me, is going to laugh at my sheer stupidity of starting out in the networking game, because it was seriously bad. I'm selling commercial printing, and I'm still trying to figure out, you know, cold calling and doing walk-ins, and I stumbled upon this concept of networking. And the way I think I read it in an article, but basically, you know, you bring a group of people together, they sit around a room, they swap business, and, you know, other people are basically becoming your sales reps. So I'm in my young 20s, and I'm thinking this is the holy grail. Holy shit, other people are going to go out, and they're going to sell for me. I've got to do this. So I found this organization. And it was called BNI, and it's still around. It's Business Networking International. And if you're just or you're new to networking, it's a great organization. If you're a seasoned guy or you're in the B2B realm, not the best place for you. But for sure, if you sell a B2C game, great place to cut your teeth in networking. So I find this event in one of the cities close to where I lived at the time, and I go. Now, I don't know what to expect. The website that I found the information on doesn't have me a whole lot of information on there about, you know, what you should bring, what you should wear, you know, anything. So I can remember the night before that I'd taken my best suit to the, you know, dry cleaners, got it all prepped to rock and roll. I stuffed my pockets with brochures and pamphlets and business cards, and, you know, I rehearsed this pitch that I was going to give this room to get prepared to sell all these people on why they should be my sales rep. So I drive to this event and get out of my car, of course, and I look around, and, you know, this parking lot is full. So I'm like, yes, there's a ton of people here that I can sell printing to. So I go up. I got my best clothes on. I've probably got brochures damn near falling out of my pockets because I'm make sure I'm bringing enough for everybody. And I walk up, and there's this receptionist desk at this country club that this meeting's at. Or it's not a country club, it's a community center type thing. And so as I walk up, the lady behind the desk, she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, you know, like I would on a walk-in sales call, I said, "Well, my name's Donnie Boivin. I sell commercial printing. Who would I talk to about your business cards, letterhead, brochures, pamphlets?" And she looks at me and goes, "Oh, you must be here for the network meeting." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She goes, "The two ladies down at the end of the hallway will take care of you." And as I turn to walk away, I hear a mumble in the back of her head, "Oh, my God, they're going to love this guy." I didn't think anything of it. So I walk up to this desk, and there's two nice ladies sitting behind this desk, and they've got like a sign-in sheet and everything else, and they have a big smile on. They look at me and said, "Welcome, nice to meet you. Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Donnie Boivin, and I sell commercial printing, and I'm here to print your guys' business cards, your brochures, your pamphlets. How do I go about making sure that I win your business?"
And they both looked at me kind of quizzically, and they said, Donnie, we're sorry, that's not how this works. I said, okay, I'm here to sell printing. And they go, this is a networking meeting. Why don't you sign in? We'll get you settled in, and then you can kind of hear how the process goes. I said, great. I said, well, while I'm at it, why don't you have one of my brochures? So I'm handing them both a brochure. I'm handing them both business cards. And I remember thinking in the back of my head, hell, I didn't give the gal at the reception desk, a brochure. How is she going to know how to get a hold of me? Guys, remember, I'm in my early 20s doing all this, okay? So the ladies point to the room and said, everybody else is in there. Somebody will find you. So I walk into this room that's filled full of people, and I'm not wasting any time. I realize that there's this many people. I've got to work a room. So I walk up to 2 or 3, I think it was 3 gentlemen. It was 3, I can picture all their faces now. I walk up to 3 gentlemen, and I stick my hand out and say, my name's Donnie, I do commercial printing. And before I could get anything else out, this taller gentleman with this slick back hair turns, grabs my hand in this big, bear hug handshake, and says, I'm so-and-so. I sell electricity. Who do you have your home electricity for? And by the way, did you know you can make a lot of money with electricity? And before I could say, another gentleman kind of slips his hand almost inside of the other person's and goes, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I sell financial services. Have you thought about getting your life insurance together, or do you have a retirement plan? And then the third person that's standing right there, before I can get a word out edgewise, I forget what he sold, but it was another MLM, and he immediately steps in and says, I do whatever his MLM was. And I'm like, gents, I'm here to sell commercial printing. How do I get your guys' business cards? So you got 4 of us standing in this quick, tight circle, all trying to sell each other our shit. And finally, a gavel gets slung down on the table, and, it gets the room's attention. And I could see the guy who sold electricity is really perturbed, because I think he saw me as a sales guy and was like, I was getting on his team, and I didn't really show any interest in doing any of that stuff. So this gavel racks out, and they're calling a meeting to attention, and they're starting to go through all their processes. Now, I read somewhere in this networking thing that you were going to give an opportunity to give a pitch to the room. So I had been rehearsing this pitch, this thing I was going to say in front of the room that was just going to wow everybody on why they should absolutely order their commercial printing through me. And the reason I say commercial printing is my shop wasn't set up to do the one-off business card run. We were supposed to be selling 50 to 100,000 piece runs, big money, $10,000, $20,000 runs. And at the time, I didn't realize I was sitting in a room where probably the biggest order I was going to get was going to be like a $50 to $200 order. It just wasn't really a set for our shop, but I digress. And so the meeting starts, and the flow is a typical meeting, I guess. Somebody stands up and says something, somebody announces some events, and then they get to a point where they're introducing the guest. And here I am now. I've got all my pamphlets and brochures. I'm ready to hand those out. I got my business cards ready to hand out, and I've got my prepared speech. So when they get to the guest, they ask the guest, would you please stand up, tell us your name of your company, and who you are. Well, my understanding was that this was the time to introduce my company. So I stand up, say, I'm Donnie with Global Group, and I sell commercial printing. Do you have and the guy starts rapping the gavel down. And I just look at him, and every ounce of my marine being's in me, because this dude just shut me up with a gavel. And he goes, sir, all you're allowed to do is introduce your name and company. I'm like, oh, okay. And I sit down, and I'm sure I'm red in the face at this point and frustrated because, some grown-ass man had just shut me up with a gavel. And, I've just never been that good with authority type. And it didn't help that the guy who shut me up the gavel was the same dude that was trying to sell me life insurance and financial advisory services before I even learned his name. And same way I was with, commercial printing, is I was just trying to sell everybody before I got to know anybody. So I sit back down in my chair, and the gal to my left looked at me, she smiled a big smile and said, "Don't worry, it gets better." So when I heard that, I thought, oh, well, there's another chance for me to pitch down the line. So the meeting goes on, and then all the members are getting up, and they're doing what they call their 30-second commercial. Now, me, I prepared like this 5-minute pitch for the room because I was going to wow and impress everybody with my presentation skills. And so they're going around the room. Everybody's introducing themselves. And they go to the gentleman right next to me, and he stands up and he gives a speech. And what I'd noticed as they were going around is everybody had this like jingle on the back end of their speech. And it was like a commercial of some sort where people were supposed to remember. Well, I didn't have a jingle. So while I'm trying to think of what's my jingle going to be, they get to the guy next to me. He sits down, and I stand up, and I start to speak again, and the dude raps his gavel. And at this point, I'm getting pissed. He goes, "Sir, this time is for members only." So I shake my head, and something in the back of my mind says, "Yeah, not this time." And I start going, right? So I start telling my prepared speech. And I'm telling commercial printing, and we do business cards, and he starts rapping his gavel again. And I just paused, turned and looked at him, and he goes, "Young man, this is for the members portion of it. We'll follow up with you here in a little bit and tell you how this works." And I looked at him and said, "Well, I'm not done with what I have to say." And I go back to presenting, and you can see the frustration. He lets me go a little bit longer. He raps the gavel a third time and says, "Young man, would you please sit down?" Realizing that I'm obviously out of my element, I finally sit down. As you can tell, I'm really the sweet and cuddly type. So I sit down, and the meeting continues on. But at this point, I'm just pissed. So here I came to, I got 30, 40 people sitting around the table that I'm supposed to be selling commercial printing, and I don't even get a chance to try and sell any of these people shit because they won't let me speak. So they get around the room, and then they get to this portion of, for our non-members, and I think there was one other person there that wasn't a member as well, would I mind going out in the hallway and talking with our membership team about becoming a member of the group? So we go out in the hallway, and it's the guy who sells electricity that is the membership coordinator, I think is the title. And we go out there, and I think he's supposed to be telling me about membership, but as we go out there, he starts asking me again. He goes, "So tell me about your electricity you have at your home." And I'm like, "Man, we just bought this house. I just went with, the main incumbent." I said, "I'm just here to sell commercial printing." He goes, "Well, you really need to look at this business opportunity. You can make a lot of money, selling other people electricity." I said, "Man, I have a great career selling commercial printing. Why would I want another one?" He goes, "Because this is your retirement plan." He goes, "You can make millions of dollars doing all this." And I said, "Aren't you supposed to be talking to me about membership?" He goes, "But you really need to take a look at this because I think this could be a life-changing moment for you." He goes, "With your hustle and your, fortitude, you should be able to kill it with this." And I'm like, how about we just talk about the program that's at hand? So frustrated, he just walks back in the room and doesn't even tell me about the membership. He hands me a booklet, I think. And we go back in the room, and as the meeting continues, they start going around, and I get to this portion called Happy Dollars. And Happy Dollars is where in B&I that if you have a referral for somebody or somebody's giving you a referral, you get a chance to say thank you. And people were standing up, and every person was passing in $1 or $2, thanking people for these referrals they'd gotten for their business. And it was crazy, like the realtor would stand up and thank the mortgage guy would stand up and thank the title guy. And, just like in that day, that room exchanged like $500,000 worth of business. And I thought, holy shit, if this many people is trading that much business, then I've got to be a part of it, even if I don't understand it. So I'm flipping through the brochure, and they get to me, and they said, Donnie, would you like to say anything? I wasn't paying attention, of course, so I stand up and said, well, let me tell you about commercial printing. And the guy wraps his gavel again, and he goes, no, we mean about would you like to, say any thank yous? I'm like, oh, I guess, thanks for the meeting today, and I sit back down. And the meeting ends, and I've already made up my mind that the cost it was expensive, but I think I could go back to my company and get them to pay for it. And as I'm walking out of the meeting, I totally skipped that I was supposed to go back and talk to other people. I was so geared up that I got to get this thing going that I started walking towards the door. And the guy who was the life insurance guy who ran the meeting walked up to me and goes, man, we really need to sit down and talk about your financial future. Do you think you're going to come back? And I said, I'm going to go find out. I'm making a decision if I'm going to come back or not. And then the electricity guy, he was like waiting by the door for me. He goes, dude, we really need to sit down and talk about electricity. I'm like, we'll figure it out. So I leave, and I go back to the office, and I'm telling, my boss at the time, Jane, about this. And I'm telling Jane that, we've got to do this. And I explained to her how much money's being slung around the table and how it works. And she says, let's give it a go. So I sign up to come back to this meeting, and long story short, how it played out was I didn't change. I stayed the same sleazy sales guy, trying the sleazy tactics, and pissed off a lot of people in the process. I also pissed off the people that I wouldn't go and sit down and have these coffee meetings with that wanted to sell me electricity and lighting insurance. I did meet a good guy that sold a meat delivery service that was awesome. And I did make some really good friends during that time, but I couldn't break the mold of this almost greaseball sleazy sales guy I was becoming because I didn't understand what I was doing. So I was getting ready to leave the group. I think I'd sold like one $50 set of business cards, and I was getting ready to leave the group, and an older gentleman came up to me, and he said, Donnie, he goes, I don't think it's the organization. I think it's just this group and you are not vibing. He goes, you should check and see if you can switch to another group. So I called up the regional or district manager and explained the situation. He said, well, you can't transfer groups. And I said, well, then I just want all my money back. He goes, well, you can't do that. I said, well, the choice is I go find another group or you give me my money. He goes, let's see if we can find another group. So I found another group that I go to, and I decided going into this group that I was going to sit back and observe and see how people were doing this. And it became really, really cool. And what I learned was the people that were really good at this, really good at networking, they cared for more of the other members than they did themselves. The faulty part in it is some of the people flat out just cared too much and they never made business out of it. And their businesses never grew. I mean, it was a shame. I saw some really good people, businesses go away because they couldn't figure out how to turn networking into a business. But, I tell you my tragic start to all this to say, even though I got really, really successful in networking and I learned some great life lessons, is, man, nobody goes into anything being a rock star. Nobody starts anything and is automatically just great at it. I mean, you've got to get your teeth kicked in and do some stupid things so you can figure out what's that adventure for you? What's that move? Where's life going to take you? And without those lessons, man, you just don't get a proper position in the world, and you'll plateau because you won't know how to make the next move. So I go through networking, and I really learned how to turn the corner. And I'll teach you some of these principles, what really helped me out, and how I really figured all this out. And it was a game changer for me once I understood
And because I got good enough at networking, people have actually started asking me to speak on it. And as you probably heard in other episodes, or if you haven't, I'll tell you, that's how I got into public speaking. Was people wanted to know how I was growing so much business, such a large business, through networking. They wanted me to teach them the tips and tricks to it. And I was explaining to them, there is no tips and tricks. It just becomes a part of you. But one of the epiphanies I had that became a game changer for me in networking was simply this. Networking is not about growing referral partners. Networking is not about selling the people in the room or the place you're at, whether that's in an after hours, whether that's at your networking group. If you look at any of those people as prospects, you're going to have a rough time. Because those aren't your prospects. Networking is about growing other people's businesses. And it's about helping people get a bigger and better business. And I know people always say you're supposed to do that without any expectations, in return. But that's really hard to do. It's really hard to just give to give, especially if your business is struggling. So what I tell people is you've got to give because it's the right thing to do. Hope that something comes back, right? Don't expect it to come back. Hope it will. Put good faith moves out there so good faith moves come back to you. But focus your energy on growing other people's businesses. Don't go into it expecting that you're going to win early. Networking, especially if you're making a new industry and a new move, is a long play game. It is not something that happens overnight. And I'll tell most people, in networking, it's going to take you a year to 18 months. Damn sure if you're in a B2B game, it's going to take you that long. B2C will move faster. B2C struggles more on getting those second and third tier referrals. B2B seems to get a lot more second and third tier referrals than first tier referrals. But if you focus on growing other people's businesses, a lot of magical and cool things happen. First and foremost, you really have to get to know and understand what makes somebody tick and what makes their business awesome. Because when you're out networking and you're giving a referral, what you're really doing is putting your personal brand on the line and telling somebody that they should trust your word, trust your judgment, that the business you're introducing them to is a rock-solid business and is going to take care of them. Which means you've got to vet your referral partners. And it's the one frustration I have with organizations like BNI or some other organizations are like, you can only refer to people that are in that group. The problem I run in with that is, what happens if you have a shitty company in that group? I'm not willing to put my brand on the line to introduce somebody that's not going to represent my brand on a good and regular basis. So what I find is that you've got to build a strategic partnership with all your referral partners. All the people you're trying to grow the business, you've got to know a lot about them, which means you've got to spend some time with them. You're not going to go to an after hours and immediately fall in love with somebody and want to send them all their business. It does happen. I've done it, right? I've met somebody maybe that was in an oddball industry or was just somehow we clicked and connected, and I sent them a referral that night or the next day. But that's not a thing that happens often. Usually it takes, you meet them somewhere, you go have a cup of coffee somewhere, you maybe go have a cocktail somewhere, you see them a couple times, and then, a relationship starts forming and you start sending business. Because people are really scared of what's going to happen when they put their name on the line. And, another great lesson for me in networking is if you're given a referral, you've got one thing you must do above all else, and that's make the person who referred it look good.
you've got to make them look like a rock star because they just put their brand on the line with your name. And you've got to make them look awesome in that moment, because if you don't grow their reputation by being awesome, then you'll never ever see a referral again, and you're liable to lose other referral partners because they're going to tell somebody else that you screwed the pooch. Right? So you've got to make them look amazing and make them look good. In addition to that, it's amazing to me, the second thing you must absolutely do is actually follow up with the referral, which goes back to number one by making them look good. But it's amazing how many referrals I gave out over the years that people never reached out. And these were fully vetted referrals where somebody said, hey, I'm looking for, XYZ service, and do you know anybody? And it immediately... He said, yeah, you should talk to so-and-so, make an email introduction, and then the person to make the introduction to poops out and doesn't follow up. You learn really quick, I'm never going to send a referral to that person again. So networking's a business, and I don't think a lot of people look at it that way. Networking is legitimately about growing your business so you can scale your business. And the only way to do that is by growing others' businesses. Here's a couple of strategies that I put in place that helped me be very, very, very successful. And they're really simple philosophies, but it always seemed to work in my favor because that's just how I ran my business. So one of the things that I found is in networking, everything's a number. And it's really simple. The only thing I tracked was the number of referrals I gave out. That was the only number I really cared about. Because I knew that if I could give out 10 referrals, a week, 2 weeks, whatever, 10 referrals would ensure that I got a referral back. Now, that could be 10 to one person, 10 to 10 different people, didn't matter. But I needed to get to 10 referrals. And if I gave 10 referrals, I would get one back, sometimes two. And an average, it was about 10 referrals out. The main reason is, what you're going to find in networking is not very many people are actually out hustling. Most people that go to networking suck at sales. Sorry, people, if that offends. But the truth of the matter is, very few people that are in a networking function are out actively hustling, trying to grow a business. They're sitting in networking because they don't know how to go sell. So they're hoping other people can open the doors for them fast enough, quick enough, that they can survive before they get fired from their company because they don't have enough revenue coming in. Because they don't know how to cold call or kick in doors or do the social game. So they're 100% dependent on other people to grow their business, which is a really scary place to be, but it is what it is. So I knew that if I spent enough time growing others' businesses, if I could go hustle and meet new people on a regular basis, that I could do some serious networking, which really helped me open some doors. So luckily I could sell, so I was constantly meeting new prospects and clients or other networking partners that I could make these referrals and introductions on a regular basis that continuously grew my business. And as long as I was able to give out referrals, I got them in return. Each week, I would heavily focus on how many referrals I was giving out, and which helped me focus my time. And, I could look at events, or I could look at groups or organizations, and if I couldn't give out enough referrals to that group or that organization, it wasn't a fit for me. If I couldn't grow their businesses, then my business wasn't going to grow. And it was always telling. So I'd always attend 1 or 2 meetings of any group or any after hours or whatnot, just kind of get a feel for the people that were there. But once you sized up the room, you could tell pretty quickly whether you were going to be able to help this room or not, and which made the best decision about how you were going to move forward with business. But it's interesting to learn the skills of reading the vibe of a room, know if it's going to be a good fit for you or not. So what I found was there was just a lot of groups that were just run shitty. I mean, the leadership teams, good people, but like in sales, a lot of people suck at networking. To really make networking good, you've got to be out knocking on doors and getting deals done. Because it comes back to, if you can't grow others' businesses because you can't make referrals, then it makes it very hard for people who want to refer you. Sure, you'll get the people in the meetings and the groups. But remember, the people in the meetings and the groups are not your targets. They may come on and be clients. But if you focus on them being your client, you'll never get to the second and third tier people, where that's where the plethora of referrals come from. And if you focus on the people in that group, then you're constantly going to come across as a sales guy trying to sell them something, and nobody wants to be sold, but they love to buy. So you've got to focus on getting to the second and third tier connections so you don't become the cheeseball trying to sell them and end up acting like the asshole I was the first time I went networking, right? So it means you really got to get to know people and know specifically what they're looking for, so you know an exact type of referral to get them. And when I'm talking about referral, I'm talking about you have a legitimate hot prospect that you're giving somebody. For instance, a buddy of mine, last week called me up and said, hey, I need a commercial roofer that can do this particular liner on the top of a flat roof. And I said, I think I got a guy, let me check. Called another buddy of mine up and said, hey, can you do this? He said, yeah, absolutely. I said, my buddy will be calling you, sending the introduction right now. Went back and, boom, they're locked in and they're doing business already. Because it was such a specific referral. And people know that, but if you're looking for me for referral, that you better come with, tangible assets of, hey, this is specifically what I'm looking for. Who do you got? Because, like roofers, I know a dozen of them. Financial advisors, I know 1 million of them. Bankers, I know 1 trillion of them. So if you're coming for a referral, come specific as hell. So I know how to open the door for you, and it's amazing. I get calls like that all the time from people that are saying, hey, I need a software developer that specializes in fixing things that were sent out of country that are broken. I'm like, cool, got you, guy, and I can make that introduction, because it's a lot better to get that really specific referral versus, hey, do you know a software company, or hey, do you know a roofing company? When you coach your people that you're helping grow in their business to ask for specifics, man, you can give some just amazing referrals that both sides walk away happy. That's just a really cool thing to do. But it's because you're focusing on the second and third tiers that you really get to know somebody and what makes them awesome instead of focusing on trying to sell them. It's a really cool game changer for networking when you make that mental adjustment. The other thing that I would tell you is, these organizations that try and tell you that you should be in only one group and one group only, that's because they're trying to grow a business, and the more they can hold people to one group, the more groups they can start, because, somebody will want that seat, and that seat's full, and they're like, oh, we'll start as another group, and then they make more revenue. Nothing wrong with a business model. It's not conducive for you to grow your business. So what I found is I was usually a member of 4 or 5 groups at a time, and which led to me that there was a lot of shitty groups out there with not great leaders. So I just started running my own groups and started creating my own groups, which became really fun because now you could control how the meeting was run. You could control the principles behind it, and you could really make some serious headway. And then, if the group sucked, it was 100% my own fault. And I either regulated or I didn't regulate it. And I can tell you, my favorite group that I ran was a B2B only commercial group. And what made the group awesome was you had some serious networkers in there that really shared some phenomenal business. I mean, we pushed a lot of business through there on a weekly basis. But each quarter, we pick a new nonprofit that we would take that Happy Dollars concept, the thank you money, and we'd donate it to that group every quarter, and we'd give between $300 and $500 a quarter to those organizations, and it was just a cool thing to do. Really enjoyed being around that group. But, guys, the whole point of all of this is really to come back and say that life's a bitch. It really is. But only because you're not willing to go up against it. Only because you're not really willing to fight through the shit so you can become something more. And just like my experience of starting out in networking and doing the stupid shit that I did, and doing the stupid things, like being a cheesy sales guy like I was the first round in the networking until I learned how to do networking, how to get good at it, and how to turn it into a business. If I hadn't gone through that experience, man, I'm not sure I would have learned networking. I think I just would have plateaued out and not done networking. And I know in some circles, networking it's a horrible rap because you got your hardcore sales guy that screams that everybody sucks that does networking because they can't sell. And there is truth to that, right? I mean, I've already said it, that some people are in networking because they can't sell. But there are those that are in there that can sell, that have turned networking into a business. I mean, I've got a couple of people that come to mind that absolutely crush it as salespeople, and they crush it as, networkers because they're out there getting after it, knocking on doors, and growing businesses. So it all comes back to one thing. You've got to take ownership of networking. If it sucks, it's your fault. If it's great, it's your fault. If you're in shitty groups, it's your fault. It's like everything else. You've got to take ownership of it so that you can grow your business properly. So keep it in mind, man. Focus on growing other people's businesses by going after their second and third tier contacts. Right? Don't go after the first. Be out knocking on doors so you can meet new clients and prospects and bring them back to help your referral partners and your networks. And, one thing I didn't talk about is relax. Don't go out to this networking and put on this mask. Let your hair down and show the people who you are and what you're capable of, and tell them your story. You'll find your people and they'll show up. So, man, as always, guys, I hope this helps you. It's been a fun talk for me. Keep being badasses. Keep doing what you're doing. And as always, run like hell.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Please comment, share, tell me what you think. Let the world know about this podcast. It would mean everything to me.